Bible reading is in the 4th chapter of Matthew this morning. We're talking today, our theme this morning is temptation to sin. So we're going to read about the temptation of our Lord himself by the devil and how he dealt with that. Matthew chapter 4. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Let's read 2 together. When he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry. Now when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you are the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." Let's do 4. Jesus said to him, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Verse 5 says, "Then the devil took him into a holy city, set him on a pinnacle of the temple." Let's do 6. "And said to him, If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He shall give His angels charge over you, and in His hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said, "It is written, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." Let's do 8 together. "The devil took him up on an exceedingly high mountain, showed him all the kingdom of the world and their glory." Verse 9 says, "And Jesus said, and he said to him, all these things I give you if you fall down and worship me." Let's do 10 together. "Then Jesus said to him, Away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, him only you shall serve." Let's finish with 11. "The devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him." All of us are tempted to sin.
Yes.
And God tells us, a matter of fact, he says we can pray, "Do not lead us into temptation, but to deliver us from the evil one." We know to be tempted is not sin. We know that. But to yield to temptation, that's the matter we're talking about today. Now, you have something wonderful, a wonderful treasure as a Christian, and that is you have ability to choose. You could say yes, or you could say, well, no. You don't want to be in a gray area with sin. That's when you get in trouble. You could say yes or no. No one or nothing makes us sin. And we are accountable and we are responsible. I thought I'll give you some case studies. Sad after the fall of Adam and Eve, and God casted them out, pronouncing curses upon them and the world. Through them, we come to Cain and Abel. 2 brothers, farmer, herdsman, and the 4th chapter. And the situation presents itself so that Cain is angry with his brother. God is not going to accept his offering. He's going to accept his brother Abel's offering, because it's a blood offering, and he wants to do it his way, and all this situation behind that. So God says to him, "Why are you angry? Why has your countenance?" He was angry, and he was angry at his brother. Now, all of that, but this is the verse I want to talk about. "If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door." That's the point. Sin lies at the door. Sin. We're tempted to sin, but sin is on the other side of the door. Now, I know we have back here, church, it's elaborate setup. They could see you coming down the street over there, and it's a sad setup because we have to lock the door. But we can see who's on the other side of the door. I think Roland has some kind of hookup in his house. You can see who's at your door, right?
Yes.
You can see who's at your door right now from here.
Yes.
Now we're old-fashioned in our house. Somebody knocks on the door. I said, "My wife, go see who's at the door." That's the old way. That's the old, and she'll do it because that's her nature. So When sin comes knocking at the door, listen, don't open the door.
Right.
As a matter of fact, don't even peek through the peephole or whatever facility you have for that, get away from it. Because God tells us to flee from sin. This, if there ever was an opportunity for someone not to do something wrong, Cain had it. God says sin is at the door, and He says, if you do well, you can. For his desire is over you, and it wants to rule over you. But what did he do? He opened the door. Sin came in. He killed his brother, and it's a terrible story. So we have that case. Remember this: sin is that you may be, because it all starts in the mind. You may be peeking through some peek holes this morning about some sin. Okay, well, look. Well, it don't cost nothing to look, but it does, because Eve saw. She saw the fruit was good for food. God said, do not eat the fruit. Isn't it something how they define that tree? God told him not to eat of. As hard as to find anything in the world. Don't open the door to temptation. Joseph is another case. And the 39th chapter. The officer's wife is after him, chasing him, and he's gone somewhere. Joseph is in charge of the household, and it says here, after these things, his master's wife cast longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, lie with me. But he refused, and he said, look, my master does not know what is with me in the house. He has committed all that he has to my hand. And then so it was that she spoke to Joseph day by day. They did not heed to lie with her or to be with her. But it happened about the time when Joseph went in the house to do his work. None of the men of the house was inside. She caught him by the garment, saying, lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand, and he fled, and he ran outside. Well, it would be nice if that was it, but he went to jail for 10 years or more because of that. But he did flee from sin. And so when our sin comes, we don't want to open the door. And as a matter of fact, we want to flee from it. God tells us in Timothy, but you, man of God, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience. With that, with Jesus' temptation here, we learn how he dealt with it each time. He dealt with it by using the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. One of my favorite verses back there is, I don't have to read it, I know. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. You can't make it because you're a spiritual person. You can't make it on just a non-spiritual appetite. You cannot make it. You need the things of God. If you're a Christian, to continue to go on. You need that. You cannot. And so we have that in how the Lord used the book of Deuteronomy. Then we have another case. God's people were victorious, greatly victorious. God gave Jericho, the walls fell down flat. It's a wonderful story. Chapter 6. But when you get to chapter 7, it's terrible defeat. Why? Because somebody sinned, and Achan, and he didn't step right up and say, they try to, why is this happening to us? He didn't. They had to work around to find out. So he finally confessed it up. But I'm just going to look here in the 7th chapter, because his sin brought death to his family and defeat to Israel. This is a good lesson here. Not only shouldn't I open the door, not only I need to flee from sin, but I need to realize that my sin is going to affect everybody in my family. You have problems and troubles in your family, and I do in my family. We all do in our family. You have troubles and problems in your family. you're going to trace it back to somebody's sin, right? And maybe that's going to just carry through. So now, I wish I didn't have to handle this, but now I have to handle this. I have to handle this biblically. It's something I didn't need, but now I have to deal with it. So Achan finally says, I have sinned against the Lord. It was stupid because when Jericho fell, God said, all the treasures of Jericho are mine. It was go to God's treasury. And so everything valuable belonged to God. After that, then God split up the treasure. So he said, I saw a beautiful Babylonian garment. I saw 200 shekels of silver. I saw a wedge of gold. I coveted them. So this sin of covetous, I took them, and they're hidden in the earth in my tent. There was no way he could display that because everybody else would know it. He only could dig a hole in the dirt and hide it, and it brought death to him and his family because of it. Then we have one of the most infamous temptations in the scripture. If we could have give us some temptation, people that were tempted, you would have thought of David in 2 Samuel. It says here, one evening David rose from his bed, walked on the roof of his house, saw a woman bathing, and the woman was beautiful, and he inquired about the woman, and someone said, this is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was cleansed from her impurity. And it's a sordid and sad story out of that. There's death, trouble follow David's house all the time. But simply this, he was doing what he shouldn't have been doing, and he wound up in all of that trouble. And when you think of David, if we say, what do you know about David? They'll want to say, it might have said, he killed Goliath. But they will remember Bathsheba before that. He was a great leader. He wanted to build a house. He wanted to build a house for God, but God says, you can't build my house because you are a man of blood. Then we think of Judas. What tempted Judas? Unimaginable. If you think, just take the Bible person out, think, what was wrong? What was going on in his? Nobody knew what he was. He was one of the 12. He was in everything. It never surprises us, at least me, when you hear some unbelievable thing about somebody, because we're capable of anything. So, but listen, this is what he said they were looking for an opportunity to deal with Jesus, to get rid of Jesus. He says, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you? And we know the rest of the story, 30 pieces of silver. And then in another case, Demas, Paul writes, has forsaken me, having loved the present world, tempted by the world. Lot's wife is another case. God said, when you're fleeing from there, don't look back. Don't look back. Don't look behind you. And she looked back, and what happened to her? She became a pillar of salt. Jesus told us, remember that. Remember that. And she looked back. She looked back tempted, and she looked back on what was, instead of looking forward to what could be. So those are some Bible temptation areas. 3 key areas of temptation for you and for me. The first one is the world. The world. We live in the world. We work in the world. We have to. We have to work every day. We have to do business in the world. That's okay, but God tells us not to love the world. That's the matter. trying to get back here in my Bible. There it is, 1 John and the 2nd chapter. Jesus says here, do not love the world, nor the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, these two I'm talking about. He tells us not to love the world or the things of the world. That is, and we get that, he says, by there's a lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life. All of that is not of the Father. So we're tempted by the things of the world. And we have a friend. She tells us, I'm a minimalist. You ever hear that word? My wife smiles. She don't know what I'm going to say, but I don't really know what I'm going to say.
I know what you mean, though.
You know what I mean. She said, I'm a minimalist. Now, a minimalist is a person that just gets by. If all of us would take our apartments or our homes and say, get rid of all we're not using, or what you haven't used in the last 5 years, all right, or few years, or if the Lord takes us all up into heaven, what's just going to be, how many of you have a garage that you could pull your car into, all right, kind of thing. She's, I'm a minimalist, and we laugh at that because she has so much stuff in the basement, so much stuff in the garage, you got to check yourself. Do I need more of this, or is this taking me over, or does it have me, or I have it? So the things of the world, and this is how I do. I look at everything. Everything is mine, because everything is God's. We're God's. Everything. If it's in the store, okay. Well, I have it over there. It's in the store. I have a Rolls Royce. I have a couple fancy cars. I have all that. Only it's over in the car dealer. It's over. You don't have to have it to enjoy it. See what I'm saying? You don't have to have it to enjoy it, to possess it. So we want to be careful about that, because the world will tempt us, and it'll tempt us away from the Lord. And the world is passing away. Now, the world also is a system that is anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-Christ. It's a system. You work in that system. You live in that system. The only one that is not as attached to the system as everybody else here is me. I always think, and any gospel preacher, we're not our attached. I mean, I don't have to go out to the world to get my money and bread. You know, see what I'm saying? You all do. You have to go. I don't rub shoulders with the world. I don't, and no preacher does. And that's just one blessing of that. But we live in a system that is everything against God. It's everything against God and everything against us. And it's tempting to us. We live in a system that is controlled by the devil. And the devil knows way around that system pretty good, and he knows how to affect it for you with the allurements and the fashions and the foods and the forms and attractions to take us. And he does it by various kind of lust. Lust is a desire, a want, to be like. We all want to fit in. And so, but we all don't always have to fit in to the world system, you see. And so, it's controlled by what we see, by what we feel, and by by the pride of life is say, if I get this, everybody can look at me and see what I got, see who I am. And so the source of temptation in the world, another source of temptation is the flesh within, is your own inner flesh, your old sin nature.
it says in Romans, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. And so you have a propensity within you to be drawn to some sin, different for everyone, but there, and he lists some of the flesh: adultery, fornication. In Galatians he says, uncleanness, licentiousness, sorcery, hatred, contention, jealousy, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambition, dissension. There's like a whole bunch of things he lists here: murders, drunkenness, revelry. And he says those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. You're going to be tempted in the area of that old nature or fleshly desire for that. And in that way, what is tempting to you will not be tempting to somebody else. What is tempting to somebody else is not going to be tempting to you. Sometimes. I heard about this show on the TV, or I like a lot of historical documentaries, but not everybody does. So I put this on. I'm going to watch this, and I get into it. And I thought, well, I'm glad I'm not paying for this, because dirty language, terrible scenes. I said, well, I can't watch this. I can't do it. And so you have to be. If you quiet in your heart what offends you, the next time it won't offend you as much, and the next time it won't offend you as much, until you're seasoned to something that shouldn't be, because you didn't respond to the conscience that you had of it. So you have to be very careful with that. So it's a temptation to the world, the flesh, and finally, and James says that when sin is born, desire, conception, birth, the flesh, and then the devil is the tempter. We see that, we read about the temptation of Jesus. And so we need to be sober and be vigilant, because the devil seeks about like a what? Roaring lion. He's after you. He's after you. And he appeals to us, and he appeals to us. And it says in James, each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desire and enticed. So the devil knows exactly what is going to work on you. And so the devil is, he's after you. James says this: submit to God. What's the other part? Resist the devil, and what he'll flee from you. So to close up, we're talking about this. Number one, how can we resist? How can we resist? Because you have to. Are you going to succumb to temptation? Which can ruin you. How can I resist? Number one, Jesus gives me the example by word and by a personal example of himself. We have the sword of the Spirit. The sword of the Spirit is what? The Word of God. When we have something that tempts us, then our mind ought to click faster than your smartphone. You should be smarter than your somebody's smarter than a smartphone, because somebody thought everything up that's in there, right? So somebody's smarter than that. But you got to be smarter than that. Well, okay, I have this. That quicker than that, but God tells me this. That's not me. I can't do that. I can't go there. I can't get involved with that. And so we have the word. Your word have I hidden in my heart. Why? So that I might not sin against you. You know that. This is significant. The world never can't understand Bible-believing Christians, and we don't expect it to. So they don't understand. Our action is not because we're conservative or liberal or we're this or that politically. My action is what this book says. That's my action. That's where I am. And that's where we need to be. What God says, that's that. So any explanation. Don't define, I don't like to be defined by, I just want to be defined by the Bible. That's what I want to be defined by. And so, what you have in life, you have to put by understanding the people your family, your co-workers, the society doesn't understand that. And when somebody finds you strange because you have biblical positions, take that as a compliment. Because that's a compliment. That's not any derogatory matter. We have the sword of the Spirit. And then we learn here we can flee from the temptation. And then we have God's armor. Didn't look at that this morning, but there's the armor of God. And then we can remember that we can be tempted. And you're tempted to something, and let me make it easy. Go into Target, something in Target you've been looking at down in the Target store, and that's not for you. I'm walking down that aisle. I'm just going to walk by. I'm just going to take a walk down it. I don't want to just go walk. You have to. You got to get it out of your mind, not get involved with that, not go over there. I was going to say for men, but I'll say it. I got like 4 minutes left. So according to that clock, according to this clock, men, some woman running around, some pretty woman running around, or you think she is. Flattering her. You got to watch that conversation. You can't get. You got to watch that. We all think, boy, I'm a macho man. Look at me. What will? The Bible tell you about that in Proverbs. She flatters with her eyes and that. You got to. It says in Proverbs 1:10, if sinners entice you, do not consent. So you can't get involved with it. You've got to resist that. And then he says this, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. In my last church, I couldn't believe it. A couple was married 50 years. Nice little old couple, and I think, well, I may get there, Sandy won't. Little old couple, when your knees get bad, your hips hurt, you toddle in, you toddle out, kind of like, and got divorced. 50 years. I mean, you're comfortable with somebody after that long. She ran off with another guy. And this is, in the realm like that, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? She told me, well, he's not interested to me anymore. I said, well, it took 50 years to find that out. Then, on top of that, guy that she divorced him and she married that guy, he died. And then the husband told me, Pastor, should I go to the funeral? Now my advice for funerals is just go. Just go. Because if you should go and you shouldn't go, but if you should go and you shouldn't go, you're happy you went. See? So you should go. But I'm just telling you, and I'm saying that because of this. Let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Don't think everything is all right with you. You've got to examine yourself. Where are you in this matter of temptation? You can't say, this will never happen to me. Anything could happen to you. You've got to be alert. You've got to be alarmed. You've got to be ready. Now, while we were in Georgia, it was our 49th anniversary, so we wanted to do something, and we went there as dolphin watching. We've been on it before. Absolutely. You go back in a lagoon. There's no tourists there. It's just total sun. Coco Lounge is there. Catch the fish here, you eat them. I mean, it's great. So we went on the little boat, and that day was class trips. School is done in the South. School is done. They're done. But they go back early. So the lady says to us, if you want, we can change your trip because it's going to be all school children on the boat with you. Well, we love that. We love being with children. And then on top of that, she says, well, this is the, what class was it? Honors class. I said, well, that's not a trip for me. My wife could go on honors class. You know, I'm with the regular kids who may fall in the water. But it was nice. And so we go out he took us up into a bayou, you know, it's like with alligators, up there and then we were out in the ocean, and looking and we saw some dolphins, because how they do it is, the dolphins, the shrimp boats are coming in, because they shrimp at night, and the shrimp boats are coming in and cleaning off, throwing back what they can't keep, and the dolphins are eating that. So, I mean, but what I'm saying is, then there's a lighthouse down there called Tybee Island Lighthouse, and it's the tallest lighthouse in the state of Georgia. And that lighthouse has stood for a couple hundred years, and it's always, and the light is never out. The light never goes out. But however, my family has contradicted that. But on the same side of it is that that's standing there. No matter what comes, it'll be there. And no matter what comes upon you and me, we've got to take heed so we can stand. I'm gonna stand. I'm not going to open the door. I'm going to flee when I need to flee. I'm going to stay away from what I need to stay away from. I'm going to obey my conscience when it tells me this isn't for you. And I'm not going to get so comfy with myself that I say, this will never happen to me, because it could happen. God is warning us today. We can live apart from being tempted. I don't think you're going to live not fall into temptation free, but I think you'll handle your temptation very well. And that's why I picked this closing hymn, Take Time to Be Holy, Speak